Maria stood just inside the tall glass doors of Elmwood Bank. Her heart thumped loudly in her chest. She wore a worn brown coat over a plain dress. Her shoes had scuffs on the toes. In her hand, she held a thin folder, its edges bent from use. She took a deep breath and stepped toward the long row of blue chairs. The lobby was quiet except for the gentle hum of air conditioning. A few customers sat reading magazines. A young girl fidgeted with her mother's purse. A man in a crisp suit tapped his pen on a clipboard. Maria tried not to stare. She kept her eyes forward and moved slowly to the end of the line. At the front desk, the bank manager, Mr. Cole, sat behind a polished oak counter. He looked up from his computer screen. His gray hair was neat, and his suit was perfectly pressed. He saw Maria entering and straightened in his chair. A small, mocking smile curved at one side of his mouth. When Maria stepped up, she cleared her throat softly. "Good morning, sir," she said, her voice steady. "I would like to apply for a small business loan." Mr. Cole leaned back. He studied her over the top of his glasses. "A loan," he said slowly, as if he tasted a bitter medicine. "You don't look like someone who can handle money." Her face stayed calm, but inside her stomach twisted. She lifted the folder and placed it gently on the desk. "Yes, sir. I have my papers here." He clicked a button on his desk microphone. "Anna, please get the loan forms." He turned back to Maria. "But you should know, loans aren't for everyone, especially for people in need." His tone was low, but every person in the lobby heard it. "Anna." The teller came out with a thin stack of papers. She whispered something to Mr. Cole. He waved her away. Maria picked up the forms. She opened one and began to read. Mr. Cole shook his head. "I'm not sure you qualify. You look like you struggle to pay rent each month. We usually only lend to people with good credit and stable businesses." Maria's fingers tightened on the pen. She looked at the papers. The fine print shook her eyes with numbers and dates. She forced herself to breathe slowly. Behind her, someone cleared their throat. It was Lena, the teller. She watched the exchange with wide eyes. "Sir," Lena said quietly, "I don't think we should judge her by her looks. The bank's policy says we treat every customer the same." Mr. Cole raised an eyebrow at Lena. He turned back to Maria and laughed. The sound echoed in the room. Colder than ice. The laugh cut through the air. "Lena, leave us alone," he snapped. "This is business, not charity. Miss, I suggest you try a local credit union or a government program. We are a private bank." Maria kept her voice even. "I understand, but I have proof that I can pay back the loan." She pushed the folder forward. The corners bent against the wood. He leaned in, his face close to hers, eyes narrow. "Proof?" he asked, voice soft but full of doubt. She nodded. "Yes, proof." Then, in a quiet voice, she said, "Would you mind if I show it to you now?" Mr. Cole straightened up. He glanced at Lena again, who was now biting her lip, worried. Anna peeked from behind the teller window. The lobby was so still Maria could almost hear her own heart. All at once, Maria reached into the folder and pulled out a crisp white paper. She placed it on the desk. The paper had a gold seal and bold letters at the top, Elmwood Financial Holdings, Incorporated. Mr. Cole's eyes flicked to the seal, then back to her. "What is this?" he asked, his voice very low now. "It is the letterhead of the company you work for," Maria said. Her tone was calm, too calm. "I am a major shareholder. I own over 20% of all shares." The room held its breath. Mr. Cole went pale. His hand trembled as he pushed his glasses up. He tried to speak, but no words came. Customers in the lobby shifted in their seats. Lena's jaw dropped. Anna stared from behind the glass. Even the suited man with the clipboard stopped tapping his pen. Maria looked at each face. She spoke softly. "I did not come for a loan. I came to see how you treat people you think are less than you." Mr. Cole swallowed hard. He reached for the folder again, as if to touch it, to believe it was real. The gold seal caught the bright bank lights. Maria watched him, her eyes steady. She stood tall, despite the old coat and simple dress. In that moment, she was more powerful than the polished counter, the fancy suits, and the bank's cold marble floors. She had all the proof she needed. "Sir," she said quietly, "I think you owe me an apology." Her voice carried across the lobby. No one dared interrupt. Mr. Cole cleared his throat. His cheeks burned red. He looked down at the letterhead. Then he looked back to Maria. I am sorry," he stammered. "I should not have judged you." Maria nodded once. She left the folder on the desk and turned toward the door. As she walked away, the whispers started again, this time in awe, not pity. Outside, Maria paused and looked back through the glass doors. She gave a small, knowing smile. Inside, the bank manager sat frozen. He would never forget the lesson he learned that day. And Maria, she walked down the city street, her head held high, her secret safe. For now. 2 seconds. "You said." Maria stepped out of the bank's glass doors, the cold wind brushing against her cheeks. She didn't look back. Her face was calm, but inside, her heart was racing. She had done what she came for, showed them that not everything is what it seems. She kept walking down the busy street, blending in with the crowd, just like always. Back inside the bank, the silence still hung in the air. Mr. Cole sat frozen at his desk, staring at the folder she left behind. His fingers shook as he picked up the paper again. The gold seal glared back at him like a warning. The words were clear. Maria Williams, shareholder, Elmwood Financial Holdings. He couldn't understand it. How could she, a woman who looked like she had no money, be his boss? The idea made his stomach turn. He wiped his forehead with a handkerchief and looked up. He saw Lena standing near the teller window, her eyes full of something he didn't like, disappointment. She had warned him, and he had ignored her. Lena was young, in her early 20s, with bright brown eyes and a quiet kindness that customers often noticed. She had worked at the bank for 2 years and had seen Mr. Cole treat many people differently based on how they looked. But this time, something felt different. Something felt wrong. She walked slowly to Mr. Cole's desk. "Sir," she said gently, "I tried to tell you. I saw her before." He looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "She came here last month," Lena explained. "She didn't speak to anyone. She just stood in the corner and looked around. I thought maybe she was lost. But when I smiled at her, she smiled back, like she knew something I didn't." Mr. Cole leaned back, still looking dazed. "Why didn't you say anything then?" Lena shrugged. "I didn't think it mattered. She didn't ask for help. But today, when you spoke to her like that, I don't think she came here for a loan. I think she came here to test you." He didn't answer. He just stared at the letter again. Then he stood up quickly, grabbed his phone, and walked into his office, slamming the door behind him. Flashback. 1 week ago. Maria sat alone at a small table in the back of a food truck park, eating a bowl of warm soup. Her coat had a missing button, and her boots were dusty. A group of young business people walked by, laughing. One of them looked at her and whispered something to his friend. "Look at her," the friend replied. "I bet she's homeless." Maria didn't react. She just sipped her soup and listened. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was an email. Another real estate deal had closed. Her profit, over $200,000. She smiled quietly to herself. Nobody knew who she really was. That was her power. Back to present day. Mr. Cole's office lights flickered as he dialed the number for Elmwood Financial's main branch. He asked for someone in leadership. A moment later, the voice came on the line. "This is Angela Martin, executive assistant to Mr. Ford." "Yes, this is Cole Thomas, manager at the Elmwood City branch," he said quickly. "I had a strange visit today from a woman claiming to be a shareholder. "What's her name?" Angela asked. "Mariah Williams." There was a pause. Then the voice came back, colder. "Sir, she's not just a shareholder. She's our major shareholder. She owns more shares than anyone else except the founder. Why are you calling about her?" Mr. Cole's mouth went dry. I may have spoken to her without knowing who she was. She didn't look like someone in her position. Angela's voice turned sharp. "What exactly does someone in her position look like, Mr. Cole?" He had no answer. "We'll be reviewing your branch's behavior closely," Angela said before hanging up. Mr. Cole slowly put the phone down. His legs felt weak. In the main lobby, Lena was still at her desk. Anna whispered from behind the glass. "Do you think she'll come back?" Anna asked. Lena thought for a moment. "I think she might, but not as someone asking for anything. She came with a message today." "What kind of message?" Lena looked toward the door where Mariah had walked out. "That we need to start treating people better. All people." Across town, Mariah's apartment. Maria sat at her small desk, sipping tea. Her apartment was simple but clean. A laptop was open in front of her. On the screen was a list of properties, companies, and bank branches. Her properties, her companies, her branches. A small photo stood beside her laptop. It showed a little girl standing next to a tired-looking woman, Maria and her mother, outside a shelter. She touched the frame softly. "I did it, Mama," she whispered. Her phone buzzed. A message popped up from her lawyer. "Mr. Cole just called corporate. He knows now. Do you want to press further?" Maria smiled. "Not yet," she typed back. "Let him sit with the truth first. I'm not done." She leaned back in her chair and looked out the window. She had more plans. She didn't just want respect. She wanted to change the way people were treated. She wanted to make sure no poor girl like her mother would ever feel small again in a bank, a school, or anywhere else. And this was just the beginning. Mr. Cole sat in his office, completely silent. The ticking clock on the wall was the only sound in the room. He still couldn't believe what had happened just an hour ago. A woman he mocked for looking poor had turned out to be one of the most powerful people connected to his bank. And now, the letter sat in front of him like a loaded gun. He picked it up again, reading every word carefully, hoping he had misunderstood. But no, it was all real. The letter was addressed to all bank managers under Elmwood Financial Holdings. It stated that Maria J. Williams was the new executive chairperson and largest shareholder in the company. There it was, her signature, in bold black ink. She hadn't come for a loan. She had come to see how he would treat her when he thought she was just another poor, black woman walking into his bank, and he had failed the test. Meanwhile, Lena stood near the teller counter, watching from a distance. She had seen the manager laugh. She had seen him insult Mariah like she was nothing. And she had seen Mariah's calm, powerful answer. Now she understood everything. She whispered to Anna, "Do you know what she gave him?" Anna shook her head. No, but his face looked like he'd seen a ghost. Lena nodded. "She wasn't just anyone. She's the owner." Anna's eyes widened. "What?" "Yes," Lena said. "She owns the company that owns this bank." She played her cards slowly. And now, he's the one shaking. They both looked toward Mr. Cole's glass office. He was sitting with his head in his hands. Across the city, in a quiet law firm, Maria walked into a tall glass building and rode the elevator to the top floor. She didn't look rich. She didn't act proud. But when she entered the office, everyone stood up. "Good afternoon, Ms. Williams," her assistant greeted her. Maria smiled politely and walked into the conference room. Her lawyers were already waiting. She sat at the head of the table. A large screen lit up with numbers, charts, and documents. "Status update," she said calmly. One of the lawyers replied. All branches received the ownership notice. Only one manager reacted. Poorly. Maria raised her eyebrows. "Let me guess. Maple Street branch. Yes, Mom. Cole Thomas. He refused to even read the letter. Spoke to you with disrespect. I know, she said. I was there. Everyone went silent. You were there? The lawyer asked. I walked in, asked for a simple business loan, she explained. He laughed, mocked me, told me to try a donation center. The room was quiet again. One of her older advisors leaned forward. What would you like us to do? Maria paused. Not yet. Let him sweat. Let the truth settle in. Then she smiled. Let me tell you why I did it. Flashback. 5 years ago. Maria was sitting outside the same bank, holding a bag of coins. She had just been fired from a job as a janitor. Her mother was sick, and she had no one else in the world. She went inside the bank to ask for a small loan, to buy cleaning supplies, and start her own business. The manager at that time, Mr. Cole, he had laughed at her back then too. No one will give money to a poor woman with no credit, he had said. But she didn't give up. She borrowed from a friend, cleaned offices at night, saved every dollar. Over the years, she grew her business into a company. Then she started buying small properties, then stocks, then bank shares, quietly, smartly, until one day she owned more than anyone else. Now she was back where it all started, back to the present. The next morning, Cole received another envelope at his desk. It had a company seal and a one-page letter inside. To Cole Thomas. From Office of the Chairperson. Subject: Immediate Conduct Review. He opened it with shaking hands. The letter said his behavior was under official review. It asked him to explain why he turned away a potential client without looking at their documents. Below it, in bold, was Mariah's name again. He leaned back in his chair, his heart pounding. He looked out the window, thinking about everything he had said, every word, every laugh. Later that day, Lena received a private message on her work email. Thank you for your kindness and bravery. I noticed. M.Do. Lena smiled quietly. She had only said a few words, but Mariah had remembered her. That meant something. That meant everything. That night, Mariah sat alone in her apartment. She looked at the photo of her mother again. A soft tear rolled down her cheek. Mama, she whispered, they looked at me like I was dirt, just like they looked at you. But not anymore. She turned off her lamp and looked out the window. The city lights sparkled below. She wasn't done yet. This wasn't about revenge. It was about respect. And she was going to make sure everyone got it, no matter their color, their clothes, or their past. Mariah sat at her desk late at night. The city outside was quiet, the lights flickering in tall buildings like stars. Her apartment was peaceful, small, but full of warmth. A candle burned beside her laptop, and on the wall hung only one photo, a picture of her mother holding her as a baby. She looked at the photo and whispered, "Everything I am is because of you." Tonight wasn't just any night. It was the anniversary of her mother's death. And as always, Mariah spent it remembering where she came from. Years ago, a dark beginning. Mariah was born in a rough part of the city. Her mother, Angela Williams, worked 2 jobs, cleaning houses during the day and working at a diner at night. She never complained. She only smiled at Mariah and said, "One day you'll wear nice clothes and walk into banks with power, but not because someone gave it to you, because you earned it." Angela was strong, but life was harder than strength. When Maria was just 10 years old, her mother got sick. They didn't have money for medicine. The hospital turned them away because they didn't have insurance. One night, Angela sat holding Maria's hand and whispered, "Never let anyone tell you that you're less. Never beg. Build." That was the last night she saw her mother alive. Maria was placed in foster care, moved from home to home. Many nights she cried alone, hungry and scared, but she never forgot her mother's words. Never beg. Build. At 18, she aged out of the system. She had no money, no college, no job. She started cleaning offices, late shifts, minimum wage. People ignored her. Some treated her badly. One day, while scrubbing a floor in a lawyer's office, she saw a paper lying under a desk. It was a business agreement. She didn't understand all the words, but something in her woke up. She started reading at night. Free books from the library. Business, investment, finance. Every day, she learned more. Every night, she worked harder. Then, one rainy evening, her shoes soaking wet, she walked into the Maple Street Bank with a simple business idea. Cleaning services for companies, but with trained staff and eco-friendly supplies. She only needed $2,000 to start. The manager, Mr. Cole, laughed at her. "We don't lend to people who look like you," he said. She walked out humiliated, but not broken. She remembered her mother's voice. Build. The rise begins. Mariah cleaned during the night and worked at a grocery store during the day. She skipped meals, saved every penny, and after 6 months, bought second-hand cleaning tools. She started with one office. She was polite, professional, and sharp. Word spread. In a year, she had 10 clients, then 20. She hired 2 more women like her, single mothers, fighters, survivors. Together, they grew. Slowly, but surely. She registered her business under the name Angela Solutions in honor of her mother. After 3 years, she had 50 employees and clients in 5 cities. Then she did something bold. She bought shares. Quietly, she started investing. In small real estate projects, in company stocks, in banks, especially Elmwood Financial Holdings. While other people posted their success online, Mariah stayed in the shadows, growing quietly. One day, her lawyer called and said, "You just became the second largest shareholder." She smiled. Not second for long. Back to present. Now, as she sat in her small apartment overlooking the city, Mariah reflected on her journey. She had money, power, and respect, but she never let go of the past. She opened a black notebook. On one side, she had written, "Mission. Help people like Mama. Make banks treat the poor with respect. Build something that lasts." She flipped the page. A list of names appeared. One name circled in red, Cole Thomas. Maria didn't hate him, but she didn't forget him either. He had been the gatekeeper, the man who judged her, rejected her, and laughed at her. And now he sat under her control. At the bank, the pressure grows. Mr. Cole hadn't slept well in days. Ever since he learned who Maria was, he couldn't think straight. His emails were being monitored. His phone calls recorded. A surprise audit was scheduled for next week. Everything around him was shaking. He tried to act normal, but everyone in the bank had heard what happened. Some whispered. Others avoided him. Even Lena didn't smile at him anymore. One morning, a letter appeared on the staff notice board. It was signed by Maria Williams. Every customer is to be treated with equal respect. Their clothes do not matter. Their skin color does not matter. Their background does not matter. From this day forward, this is not just a policy. This is our promise. M.W. Cole read it again and again. Each word felt like a mirror held to his face. Lena's respect grows. Lena sat quietly during her lunch break, holding the thank you email from Mariah on her phone. She kept reading it. It was only one sentence, but it meant more than any award. "Thank you for your kindness and bravery. I noticed. M.W." That day, she walked back to her desk taller. She realized something powerful. Even the smallest act of kindness can echo. The new branch, Angela Community Banking Center, had only been open for 3 days, but something special was already happening. People from every background walked through the doors without fear. There were no fancy suits, no high heels, just real people. Some came in with grocery bags. Others brought children. Some looked nervous. but the staff welcomed everyone with warm smiles. This was not an ordinary bank. It was a bank built on broken pieces, and Maria was its heart. A mother walks in. One afternoon, an elderly black woman named Mrs. Jenkins walked in with a worried face and a torn envelope in her hand. Her electricity had been cut off. She had no one to help her. At the old banks, they would have ignored her. But here, the young banker stood up immediately and said, "Ma'am, please sit down. Let me help you." He took time to explain her options. He helped her set up a simple payment plan. Then he gave her a list of places that offered emergency help for the elderly. Mrs. Jenkins looked up with tears in her eyes and whispered, "This place feels like home." The word spreads. In just 2 weeks, more than 500 new clients opened accounts at Angela Bank. Local news picked up the story. Formerly homeless CEO creates a bank where the poor feel rich and respect. Social media exploded with love and admiration. People from other cities sent messages begging Maria to open branches near them. But Maria wasn't focused on fame. She was focused on repairing broken trust. A visit from someone unexpected. One morning, a man in a worn-out suit stood outside the bank, holding his hat in his hand. His eyes were tired, and he looked unsure. Lena, now a team lead, opened the door. "Sir, can I help you?" The man nodded slowly. "Is Ms. Maria Williams here?" She led him to Maria's small office in the corner of the building. When Maria looked up, her breath caught. It was Mr. Cole. Face to face. Again. Maria stood slowly, surprised but calm. "Mr. Cole." He nodded. "I didn't come for a job, or to explain myself. I came to say thank you." She tilted her head. "Thank you. I've been at the community outreach program for 2 weeks now," he said, voice trembling. "It changed me. I met people I used to ignore. I listened to their stories. And for the first time, I felt shame. Real shame." Maria sat down and let him speak. "One woman said I looked her in the eye 5 years ago and made her feel invisible," he continued. "She remembered my face." Maria stayed silent. "I just wanted to tell you. I was wrong. All those years, I thought success was numbers and suits and profits. But now I see. It's about people." He stood up, turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "If you ever open another branch, and if you need someone to sweep the floors or serve coffee, I'd be honored to be part of it." Maria didn't smile, but her eyes softened. She said, "Maybe there's more for you to do than just serve coffee, Mr. Cole. Redemption isn't about paying for the past. It's about using your mistakes to build a better future." A second chance begins. A few days later, Maria offered Mr. Cole a new role, mentor coordinator. His job was to train new hires, not just in banking, but in human dignity. He would visit schools, shelters, and churches, telling people how the banking world could change, and how it almost broke him before it did. For the first time in years, Mr. Cole felt free. Lena's new path. Meanwhile, Lena's growth continued. She was now in charge of the bank's empathy training program. Every new employee had to sit with her and learn one golden rule. Never look down on someone unless you're helping them stand. She shared her story. How she had stood up for a woman in a pink dress and rough shoes, not knowing that woman owned everything. Lena became a symbol of silent strength. Maria's bigger vision. One evening, Maria sat on a rooftop garden with her assistant. The sun was setting, the sky painted orange and purple. "We've come far," the assistant said softly. Maria nodded, "But we're just getting started." She opened her notebook again. Under a new heading, she wrote, "The future. Branches in 10 cities. Programs for single mothers and youth. Free workshops on credit, saving, and building businesses. A foundation in Mama's name." Her assistant looked at the list. "All of that will take time." "I know," Maria said, "but this isn't just a job. It's my life's work." Years passed. But the name Maria Williams only grew stronger. What started as one emotional moment in a small bank had become a national movement. The world now saw her not just as a successful businesswoman, but as a voice for the voiceless, a protector of dignity, and a leader who had walked through fire without losing her heart. The Angela Foundation. On the 10th anniversary of the first bank, Maria stood in front of a new building with a shining sign. Angela Foundation, built in honor of every mother who struggled in silence. The foundation wasn't just for banking. It gave scholarships to young girls, trained single mothers in business, and helped ex-prisoners rebuild their lives. Inside the walls were stories, hundreds of framed photos of women who had been helped. Some now owned small businesses. Some had become bank managers. Some simply smiled, finally free from the shame of poverty. At the entrance, a plaque read, "Everyone matters. Everyone deserves respect. Maria Williams." Mr. Cole's full circle. In one corner office of the foundation sat a man with gray hair and a calm face. Mr. Cole. No longer ashamed, he had now trained more than 500 young employees in what he called heart-first banking. He often told them the story of his fall, not to gain sympathy, but to warn them never to make the same mistake. One day, a young trainee asked him, "Sir, aren't you embarrassed about what you did back then?" Mr. Cole smiled gently and replied, "I was, but now I'm proud of what I became after it." Lena's rise. And then there was Lena. She now sat at the head table as Regional Director of Community Banking. She wore the same badge from her first day at the bank, not because she couldn't afford a new one, but to remind herself who she was before she got the chance. Lena had become a hero in many neighborhoods. Young women came to her for advice. News reporters asked her how she had risen so fast. Her answer was always simple. "I stood up when others stayed silent." Maria's quiet moments. Even with fame, Maria never lived in luxury. She still drove an old car. She still cooked her own food. And every night, before going to bed, she looked at her mother's picture and said, "We did good today, Mama." Her apartment walls were covered not with awards, but with letters, real, handwritten letters from people she had helped. One letter said, "You don't know me, but you saved me. I was homeless. I was tired. Your kindness at the bank gave me one more reason to stay alive. Thank you." Maria read that one often. It reminded her why she had started. A new challenge. One morning, her assistant came running into her office. "There's a man on the phone from another country," she said. "He wants to meet you." Maria took the call. The man introduced himself as a finance minister from an African country. "Ms. Williams, we have watched you from afar. We need you. Our people need banks that respect the poor. Will you come?" Maria didn't answer right away. She looked out the window. Children were playing near the sidewalk. A homeless woman smiled as a security guard helped her inside for coffee. And Maria knew. It was time to go bigger. Global expansion. Within 2 years, Maria had opened Angela banks in 3 countries. Each bank had the same rules. No discrimination, no judgment, no greed. And something amazing happened. People trusted the banks. Women brought in money they used to hide under mattresses. Farmers opened accounts for the first time. Elders came in for free financial advice. Maria didn't just build banks. She built hope, an award that meant everything. One evening, Maria was called to a large stage in front of thousands of people. A woman handed her a golden award that read, "Human Dignity Ambassador, for changing how the world sees the poor." The crowd stood up and clapped for 5 straight minutes. Maria walked up to the microphone. She looked out at the lights, at the cameras, and then down at the photo in her hand, her mother's smiling face. Then she said, "I was once laughed at, judged, ignored, but I refused to disappear, and today I stand here for every child who's been told they'll never be enough. You are enough. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Tears rolled down faces, not just in the room, but across the world. through TV screens, phones, and radios. The legacy lives on. Many years later, after retiring from day-to-day work, Maria walked into a classroom where children were being taught about money. A little girl ran up to her and said, "You're the lady who built the bank where my mommy got her first job." Maria knelt down and smiled. "Yes, I am." The girl gave her a flower and whispered, "When I grow up, I want to be like you." Maria hugged her tightly. "You can be better than me. Just don't ever forget where you came from, and help others climb with you." 10 years after Maria's final public speech, the world was different. In a small village in South Africa, a young girl named Anal stood outside a newly painted building. The sign above the door read, "Angela Junior Bank, built by the next generation." Inside the bank, there were no marble floors or glass walls, just wooden chairs, chalkboards, and smiles. It was a training bank, built for teenagers to learn how money worked, how to build businesses, and how to help their communities. Amal walked to the front of the room and opened a book. The book's title was "The Pink Dress That Changed the World: The Story of Maria Williams." A movement, not a memory. In every country where an Angela Bank existed, young leaders had taken over. They were not rich. They were not famous. They were dreamers, givers, and fighters. People who had once been ignored, now building hope. Maria's story had become part of school lessons, community centers, and even movie screens. But more than that, it had become a lifestyle. A girl from the Bronx. In New York, a teenage girl named Tasha stood on a stage at her school's business fair. Her project, a digital banking app for teens in shelters. "I was inspired by Ms. Maria Williams," she said proudly. She didn't wait for permission to care. She just started. "So I'm starting too." The crowd clapped. Later that week, her app got funded by the Angela Foundation. Tasha cried when she got the email. Her dream, like Maria's, had found wings. The tree and the roots. Maria now lived a quiet life in a countryside cottage. She had aged with grace, her hair silver, her walk slow, but her mind sharp and her heart strong. Every Sunday, children from nearby towns visited her. They sat on the grass while she told them real stories, not just about banks, but about kindness, courage, and second chances. She kept one framed sentence near her window. "Respect grows when one person dares to believe others deserve it." Letters from the world. Maria still received letters, handwritten, typed, even audio recordings from young people across the world. A boy in Brazil who opened a bike shop using a microloan from Angela Bank. A woman in India who became the first female banker in her village. A refugee in Germany who now trains others to rebuild credit. Maria read each letter slowly. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she laughed. But every letter reminded her. The seed she planted had become a forest. One final interview. On her 85th birthday, a young journalist came to visit. He was nervous. "Ms. Williams, I grew up poor. I never thought I'd get to meet you." Maria chuckled. "We all start somewhere, dear. The question is, did you keep moving?" He smiled. "I did, thanks to you." He asked, "What's your advice to the world now?" Maria looked into the camera, her voice gentle but strong. "Help the person no one else sees. Speak for the one who stays quiet. Give, even when you have little. The world doesn't need more power. It needs more love." As the camera turned off, the journalist asked one final question off camera. "Do you ever feel tired?" Maria smiled softly. "Sometimes, but when I close my eyes, I see the faces of those we helped. That's better than sleep. That's peace." Legacy in motion. Back at the Angela Foundation headquarters, a statue was unveiled in the main lobby. It showed a woman in a simple dress, holding a child's hand. The plaque read, "She came with nothing, but gave the world everything." And above it, the words that Maria had once whispered to herself. "I remember who I was. I never forgot who I wanted to be.